Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about the broad path to hell. In my presentation, I'll have the following outline. First, I'm going to talk about the pathway to hell. Then, I'm going to talk about the surprise at the end, that most people will feel when it comes to the realization that hell actually exists and that they're actually there, and the hopelessness that those in hell actually feel, the fact that there's no hope of ever getting out of hell, or there's no hope, of ever getting any kind of redemption or salvation. Then I'll summarize the presentation. Then I would actually end the presentation with a prayer. So let's get started. Usually in this particular life that we live, there are two pathways at the end of our lives on earth. We live our lives and a point comes for us to die. And once we die, there are two main pathways ahead of us. One of the pathways leads us into the presence of God, and the other pathway leads us away from God into hell, basically. And that path that leads us away from God, is a path that leads us into separation from God. And the final destination of that particular path is hell. And people, human beings in this particular life, they end up on a pathway to hell due to how they live their lives on this earth, especially in disobedience to God. You see, God requires us to live our lives according to certain standards, because that standards ensure that we're able to live in peace, we're able to be fruitful in this particular life, and everybody has a chance, to do something more meaningful and contribute positively to this particular world. But once we fall short of this particular standard, or we look away, or we decide to do whatever it is that we want, or we decide to live our lives on our own in whichever way we feel like, then we naturally, as human beings, put ourselves on a pathway to hell. Because once you disobey God, you can't expect to end up, in the presence of God after your life in this particular world. Definitely, you would have to be separated. And in this separation is what we refer to as hell. And the pathway to hell only has one destination. And this destination is a permanent destination. Because once you arrive in this particular permanent destination, there's no going back. There's no salvation. You cannot get yourself out of this permanent destination. And because the devil and his angels, hell was made for them, and they decided that they will not go there alone. They would actually go there with human beings who actually carry the image of God, because they have hatred towards God. They are very, very interested and very happy in keeping people on this pathway to hell at all costs. So in this particular life, the devil and his angels are very, very interested in actually keeping people on this particular path, so that at the end of the day, these people will end up bringing themselves right into hell, basically. And then the torment and the suffering and everything can go on, where they can have the chance to unleash the kind of hatred they have towards God on you, the human being that has arrived in hell. And we as human beings, we all have a responsibility to seek knowledge in this world. Knowledge that has been given to us by God to help us escape this particular pathway to hell. Because life is a responsibility. We all have a responsibility to be able to distinguish between what is good and what is bad, basically. So we have this responsibility to seek this knowledge, and God has provided this knowledge to this particular earth through His word, through revelations to people, through messengers, through the conscience of mankind, through so many different means. And all these are aimed towards helping us find this particular knowledge and helping us know what to do to help us escape this particular pathway to hell, so we can also end up in the presence of God after our lives on this particular world. And those who choose ignorance in this particular world will not be spared, because ignorance is not something anybody likes. Once you choose ignorance, it means you've blocked your ears. You've decided to live your life anyhow. Oh, let me live my life in whichever way suits me. It is my life. Oh, yes, it is your life. But it's a temporal life on this particular earth, and the end will definitely come. So once you choose ignorance, and you didn't actually give regard to the instructions that have been given by God to mankind in this particular world, you will be separated from God once your time comes for you to die. You will not be able to make it into the presence of God, and you would find yourself in hell, basically in the separation, and you'll be stuck there for eternity. There is no escape. Most people in this particular world happily stay on a pathway to hell without bothering or questioning, and most of the time it is basically because maybe they are ignorant about it, or they don't know about it, or they don't care about knowing what is really true in this particular life and what is not. But the pathway to hell is something that is very serious, because it will end you, in a permanent destination, which is hell. And staying on this particular pathway without bothering or without questioning or without actually being interested in where it will end you is an irresponsible way to live, actually. And if you look around the world, we have various systems that have been structured by the devil to actually place people naturally on this pathway to hell. And you can see these systems in a global system, global economy. You can see these systems in religion. You can see these systems in even culture, and most of these systems actually prevents the individual from actually questioning what has been practiced or what has been delivered, handed down from generations, from your ancestors or whatever it is. And some of these systems, especially the religious systems and the cultural systems, even go to the extreme extent of even cutting you off. Those within this particular system who decide to question on certain key practices or certain key rituals, their significance and where it leads to, these people are cut off from these particular systems, and some kind of punishment is actually meted to them. And all these have been orchestrated by the devil to ensure that the people who are born within these systems, who find themselves in these systems, it will be very difficult for them to escape these systems, because so long as they are in these systems, they are naturally on the pathway to hell by virtue of certain key practices that they do, by virtue of certain sacrifices that they make, by virtue of certain principles that they are taught to hold or to believe. They naturally place themselves on a pathway to hell, and the devil is very happy with such people. And for these people who are actually stuck on the pathway to hell, who don't really seem to bother, they will be surprised at the end of the day when they reach the end of the pathway, because the end of this particular path ends you straight at the gates of hell. And for most people, when they die off, and their journey into the next realm, and they end up at the gates of hell, that is when the surprise will jump at them, because they would realize that indeed the hell that they heard about in this particular earth actually is something which is real. It exists, and it is there, waiting to absorb the souls of mankind, basically. And the painful thing here is that regardless of the level of surprise that actually jumps at you, you cannot go back. There's no going back on your own, because once you are there, you are in for good, for eternity. And at this point, for some people, they would actually even enter the gates of hell, before actually realizing that what they are in, or where they are, is not a dream. It is real. It is actually happening to their spirit body, their soul, and it will be too late, because in the spiritual realm, people will not have to learn things. Knowledge is delivered to you so long as you begin to inquire. In this physical realm, there's a covering, so mankind has to actually go through a process of studying and understanding before you gradually build upon your knowledge. In the spiritual realm, the knowledge is delivered to you by the Spirit of God, basically, and it cuts across all the realms of the spirits, in the presence of God and in the separation of God. And for most people, they would know and they would understand that indeed they are in hell, and there's nothing that they can do, and this is the end. And at that particular point, it will be too late for them. And in hell, the human soul has no strength, Because hell is not your domain. It's a domain of the devil and his angels and their demons, basically. They actually have spiritual strength. They were made spiritual right from the beginning. They are much stronger than the human soul, basically. So you, the human being, actually being in this particular location will be just like a football on a field being played by very, very strong, energetic players. You have no choice. You will be subject to their will and whatever it is that they want to do with you. And basically, there is no love towards you. It is pure hatred. Hatred towards God and hatred towards you, the one who was made in the image of God, basically. And once you've brought yourself in and you've ended up in hell, it is suffering, torment, and all the terrible things you can imagine for the rest of eternity. And there's no end, there's no relief. It goes on and on and on forever, because for the devil and his angels, that is the only way of getting revenge at God, and they take pleasure in doing that, in tormenting people, in actually using them in this particular realm to advance their kingdom, and then tormenting and completely destroying their soul, at the final destination in hell. Basically, gives them great pleasure and joy to do this to the human beings, basically. So if you end up over there, there's nothing good there. It's just pure torment and suffering, and there's no escape. And for many people, the surprise and the realization that hell exists, at the final destination, is something that is going to devastate their souls, for eternity. Because the most painful thing is to actually have knowledge about something terrible in this particular world, and having the solution to be able to escape it, going forward, and not taking advantage of it, and then ending up exactly where it was, basically, and knowing that there's no hope, there's no redemption, there's no going back. These thoughts will be very, very devastating for so many people who would eventually end up in hell after their lives on this particular world. And one of the main devastating things in hell is the hopelessness and the realization that this is indeed the end. Because at the end, it is the end. There's no hope for anything beyond the end, basically. And once you are at the end, there's nothing you can do. You are subject to the will of those whose realm is the hell that you find yourself in. The devil, his angels, and their demons. And their job is to execute you. Their job is to torment you day and night, forever and ever, basically. And this is devastating for the human soul. Regret also set in for the people, realizing that every human being in this particular world has a shot at salvation, has an opportunity for redemption, for forgiveness of sin in this particular life. And having this opportunity, being told about it or hearing about it, or hearing it in a rumor or whatever it is, and not placing any importance to it, and then actually going through a dying process and ending up in hell and knowing that there's no redemption, this will also be very, very devastating for so many people. And the souls of people will regret, for not taking advantage of the gift of salvation that God put into this particular life, through the blood sacrifice that Jesus Christ made on the cross. That blood sacrifice is a one-time sacrifice for the souls of everybody, and it's offered as a gift. It's not by force to those who are interested, who want to tap into it, because that is the only way by which the souls of men can make it into the presence of God. Without that, no human being can save themselves from hell. And the hopelessness and the regret that indeed you've reached the end and there's nothing you can do about it, it will be something that will consume anyone who ends up in hell forever or for eternity, basically. Because once you are hopeless and you come to the realization that indeed this is the end, you are going through all this suffering, and this suffering has no end, there's no relief, and there's nothing you personally can do about it, is something that is going to consume your soul for the rest of eternity. And basically, this is something no human being would wish to experience. And in this particular world, or on this particular earth, because the glory of God is available in this particular world or on this particular earth, there are certain things God has given to us as gifts, and hope and optimism are part of those things. In this world, there's hope. There's hope for a better life. There's a hope for a better tomorrow. There's hope, for working towards something and achieving some kind of reward. In hell, these things do not exist because that place is deprived of the glory of God. The glory of God is not present in that particular place. So these gifts are not available. They are only available in this particular world. And these are things that we take for granted on a daily basis. Some people take for granted, because we get so used to, the sun rising up in the morning, shining, the breath of life is given for free. We get to breathe, we are alive, we can go, we can come, we can achieve. But these come from hard work at the spiritual level that God did, that God actually gave as a gift to all men. And these things are only available here. Because once you die and cross over from here and you don't make it into the presence of God and you make it into hell or in a separation, you don't have access to these things anymore. Because the glory of God is not available over there in hell. And you are cut off from all the good things that you knew in this particular world, and this is something which no one would wish to experience. It is something that you will not even wish on your worst enemy in this particular life. Because it is real. It happens to people, and it's there also waiting for many, and many will ignore, and they will end up over there, and they will go through the same thing over and over and over for eternity. And there's no point for anyone to focus all their attention in this particular life whilst ignoring the eternal destination, because whether you like it or not, it's all around us. There's evidence. There are many people, their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents, they've died and gone. They didn't come to it. Some of them even didn't come to meet them. The question is that, where are all these people going? But the fact that we don't know where they're going, basically, whether they're making it into the presence of God or making it into the separation, does not really mean much. But it gives us the basic information of the fact that this life is short, basically. And in this particular short life, it is this short life against the life that we are moving into, where we are going to be stuck for eternity. And eternity is much longer than this particular short life. Because even if you grow and get to even 200 years in this particular world and you die off, eternity is still much, much, much longer than this particular life. So, for a normal human being who is reasonable, you must be concerned more about the longer duration, how your life will be in eternity, than what your life will be in this particular realm. Because this realm is short-lived. We live on earth, we will die off at some point. And when we die, we cross over into the eternal realm. And there are two destinations. You get to be with God, or you get to be separated away from God in hell. And if you get to be with God, that's a plus for you. But if you get to be separated away into the separation, that is, you get to arrive or make it into hell, that will be very, very devastating. Because wherever destination or whichever destination you end up at the end of your life in this particular world, you are stuck there forever and ever, and there's no going back. And to me, it seems forever it seems longer than even if you were able to grow up to 300 or 500 years in this particular world. Forever would always be longer than your life on this particular world here. So everyone must be interested in. It's something everyone must be interested in. This life is a distraction. There's a lot of distractions in this particular life. But don't be consumed by the distraction, because we have a journey to go. And in that journey, there are two main destinations. You need to target ending up in the presence of God. Because if you don't end up in the presence of God, it is pure devastation for you forever. So in summary, the pathway to hell is a broad one, and many people naturally find themselves on it, due to how they live their lives. We as human beings, the Bible makes it very clear that we all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So once we've sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, we don't deserve to be in the presence of God because of the sins that we have made. We are separated, basically. That is why God came to redeem us through the blood sacrifice made on a cross, to bring us back into His presence. So naturally, we are falling, and the redemption that God has offered is the only way we can get back into the presence of God. And in this fallen state, if we remain in this particular fallen state, we are straight on a pathway into hell. And hell is a permanent destination for those who have nothing to do with God in this particular life. Those who don't regard God, those who have no regard or no respect at all for God, those who are ignorant about God, those who don't place any importance on things of God, basically. These people are actually on the pathway to hell, and hell is their permanent destination if they don't change. In this particular life, everyone has an opportunity for change or for redemption, because redemption has been offered as a gift. But once this life is over, that's it, you're stuck. And if hell is your permanent destination, that's it, you are done, you're finished, and there's no exit. And many people will be surprised, when hell begins to reach out for them, after their death in this particular life. Surprisingly, there are many people alive in this particular world whose names have already been registered in hell. For such people, hell will reach out for them when their time comes, when they're going through the dying process. And they, as human beings, have no strength to save themselves. And for those who didn't think much about these issues, of salvation or hell or whatever it is, surprise is going to jump at them. But even in the midst of surprise, there's nothing they can do about it. And the hopelessness and the regret of them not tapping into the salvation in this particular life is something that will be devastating, for them for the rest of eternity. Because knowing or coming to the realization that there is a solution, there is a gift that has been given by God, salvation actually exists, and there's an opportunity for every human being who has the image of God in them to tap into this particular salvation, and yet you never took advantage of that, and you've gone through the death process and you've ended up in hell. The regret is going to be enormous, and this regret is going to stay with you for eternity, and there's nothing absolutely that you can do about it. And there's no point for any human being to focus every attention that they have in this particular life, whilst ignoring the permanent destination that they're going to find themselves in beyond this particular life. The permanent destination in eternity, the duration for eternity is much, much, much longer. It cannot be even compared, with the short duration in this particular life. So the focus of people must rather be shifting towards the life in eternity than this particular life on this particular earth. Because whether we like it or not, we have the evidence, it's all around us, that this life is short. A lot of loved ones around us have departed already. And very soon, eventually, it will be our turn to go. And the point is that once it is your turn to go, where are you going, basically? On which path are you on? And where will be your final destination? This is something everyone must be interested in and must think about, to actually place themselves in proper context. So, brethren, at this particular point, I would like to make you understand that God exists, and God has given His gift of salvation to all mankind. Yes, hell also exists, but it's the will of God that people place themselves on the path that leads to salvation. God never wills for any human being to make it into hell. That is why God came down to sacrifice His blood as a one-time sacrifice on a cross, and gave this as a gift to all mankind, that those who want salvation, those who want to make it back into the presence of God, can tap into this particular salvation and have nothing to do with hell. Pray this prayer with me. Dear God, I come before you today. I thank you for your gift of salvation. Please have mercy on me Save me from the path to hell, and let your light shine upon me. I thank you for listening to my prayer. Amen. And brothers and sisters, if you pray this prayer sincerely and wholeheartedly, I do believe that the one true God who created the heaven and earth, you and I, and who made everything possible in this particular realm and beyond, would manifest things to you in ways you could never imagine. Stay blessed. And these are some of the references that I used during my presentation. You can check them out at your own free or spare time. At this point, I'd like to thank you for making the time to watch my presentation. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.